The Manipur government has suspended internet services and imposed a curfew in 8 districts across the state, including the state capital of Imphal, to control the worsening law and order situation. The Indian Army and Assam Rifles have been deployed as a security measure, and they have so far been able to evacuate over 7,500 civilians in the state. Meanwhile, the Ministry of External Affairs has also taken cognizance and has 5 rapid action forces to manage the violence. These developments come after all Tribal Students' Union of Manipur held the Tribal Solidarity March with over 1,000 protesters took a very ugly turn, resulting in a massive mob violence. This rally was essentially held in order to oppose the demand for the inclusion of the Methi community in the SC category. Now, the question that arises is how will Manipur be able to restore peace? That's the big question that we're asking on this debate. Joining us on the show is Major General Yash Moore, defense analyst, Mr. Jitendra K. Ojha, geopolitical expert, ex-joint secretary of the Cabinet Secretariat is also with us. Mr. RVS Mani, internal security expert, joins us on the show as well. Mr. Shubhrangshu Pratham Sarma, research scholar, who joins us from Guwahati as well. Professor Amar, former Vice Chancellor of Manipur University, with us on the program as well. And last but by no means the least, Mr. Sumit Peer, political analyst, joins us on the program as well. Mr. Ojha, if you're there with us, I'd like to begin with you, sir. Mr. Ojha? Okay. Mr. Mani, I'd like to come to you, sir. Mr. Arvias. Sir, you know, this is not the first time that Manipur and adjoining areas have seen this kind of violence. It's been a sensitive part of our country for decades now. The AFSPA has also been a contention that the government as well as the civilians of Northeast dealt with. How do you rate this new spate of violence that has spurred up in Manipur?
See, basically, I would put it this way. There were a lot of disturbances. The insurgents in India, insurgent groups of Northeast were hiding out in China, Myanmar and Bangladesh prior to 2014. After 2014, we had gone into Myanmar and flushed out many of them with a muscular approach. We started with that. Subsequently, lot of disaffection was removed, particularly by certain areas. A lot of infrastructure, livelihood issues were addressed, and for almost 8 years, we have seen a lot of relative peace into this. Now, this is a totally different issue on which the protest. It was a High Court order entitling the Methi tribes to be included in the scheduled tribe list. In that context, the disturbing parts, the insurgent supporters and all this, they entered into the fray. They triggered. There was the footprints are very clear that these people provoked the Christian majority there, who are already enjoying the benefits of ST. See, they are not being denied the benefit of ST. Only the size of the cake, people are supposed to share it. And it's a High Court order. It has got nothing to do with any administration or executive decision. Still, this type of has triggered and it is going unabated. And this requires a thorough investigation. 2 parts was that. We have to take communications have to be established with the protesters, because as you said, it is a sensitive state, and the disaffection which was there prevailing, it is trying to be re-injected into the northeastern state, which is very disturbing. And we also, in the process of communication, we will also know who are all the actors who are acting behind the scenes, because it is simply not the locals who are into it. There have been mischievous elements. We do not know whether it is the opposition, whether it is a political opposition, whether it is the nation's opposition. We do not know that. But some mischievous, invisible hand is creating this, and this needs to be aware. So I have given the Northeast perspective for the last 7 to 9 years. After the Myanmar thing, where they flushed out a lot of people, they killed a lot of mischief makers in Northeast, and the separatists and the secessionists in Northeast. Now we have had a good progressive period for last 7 to 8 years, and this has come out as a surprise after the High Court order came. That is very, very disturbing. That means there is certainly a invisible hand, and somebody is trying to waiting for an issue to trigger a disturbance in that. It's a very sensitive state, and the person, the invisible hand needs to be identified, made visible, and thereafter countermeasures have to start. And it cannot be treated as a law and order situation. That's because I have been in Northeast, I have known Northeast like the palm of my hand. All the 8 states, I have dealt with them. Maybe on the development front in the industry side and the security front in the home ministry side. So I do know the perspective and the thing of the Northeast. They are very much attached to India. In fact, now they are more attached to India after the heavy investments in infrastructure and all. The disaffection had almost evaporated. That is what is, this has come out as a jolt from you. Look, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Professor Amar, if you're there with us, sir. Professor Amar?
Yeah, you need to, yeah.
Professor Amar, do you agree with Mr. Mani and the analysis that he's just presented to us and our viewers that, there has to be an outside hand in all these disturbances?
Well, see, outside hand can get into the picture only when there are areas where one's hand can be put in. So let's forget about the outside hand for the time being. Now, we need to be very clear on what has been happening in the Northeast, and particularly in Manipur, in so far as demography and the census or development, what we call, associated with the people at various levels. And we must also realize the fact that Manipur has a very robust, strong, long relationship with Southeast Asia. Well, forget Southeast Asia and everything. As recently as about 2 months back, and a little less than 2 months for also, Manipur had a serious crisis of water. You know what has revealed about the realities about Manipur? A state which is supposed to be enjoying one of the highest rainfalls in the country started facing water problems. And a state which has been having very rich forests well protected. Well, that is where the problem comes in. Protected forests. How much of the protected forest is still alive in Manipur? The protected forest, we need to go actual survey, but it must be around 20% or so remaining, and who has taken benefit out of it. Protected forest, nobody can get it, but very rich forest, very rich trees, big trees, and very convenient for trading. And that is where Manipur started facing problem of water. Now, when protected forests started disappearing, the land became vacant. Absolute vacant, things like that. Well, we must also realize the fact that the tribal population, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, Kukis and the Nagas, of course, they have different property rights system. We must also realize the fact that Kukis have a property rights regime which is different from the others. Nagas have one, and the Meiteis have still one another. We have to realize a kind of a situation where the government has to again intervene, facilitate the transformation. Now, what happens is that Kukis, it is septon system, they have been realizing for the last some years that, well, with the forest, so-called protected areas disappearing, we have not been having any land area where we can settle. And they started realizing open spaces. Very, very close to the places where they have been trying to be alive with whatever little they can do. Well, it is exactly during this period that if you look at the articulations by the various different groups, active groups in Manipur, well, one group coming out with open statements which have been very derogatory of another group and inciting kind of a thing. And this is exactly the government should have come in. The government should have proven when such articulations started emerging from different sections of the population of the society of Manipur. It's a diverse society from different diverse communities. It started emerging this kind of articulation. Well, Meiteis are going to encroach into our livelihood, or this is going to be like that. This is a moment the government should have proven their presence. But, well, there was no government. Governance allowed complete liberty of such things. So I would rather look at it as escapist attitude of the government is kind of atmosphere facilitating this kind of meeting, because they have been living together. Except the communal thing which we have experienced, unfortunately, with the Muslims, we haven't had, well, this kind of different groups. Cookies have been in Manipur, well, since immemorial times. Nagas have been with us. We have been living so wonderfully well. And all of a sudden, you allow articulation by different groups, not
Right.
not by the ethnic group.
Let me also take a response from Mr. Sarma on this as well.
Yeah, that's it.
Mr. Sarma, are you there with us?
Yes, yes.
Well, these tensions which continue to escalate in Manipur, when do you think they will find a solution? The army has had to come in many a times. The internet has been suspended many a times. The chief ministers in the past have also made promises that this is something that will be controlled, but it flares up over and over again. Are you of the understanding that this is perhaps the work of some outside forces as well?
In my opinion, it's a multitude of things. Firstly, we need to understand that Northeast has always been, since the British period, a settlement frontier and the resource frontier. So we have often observed that the identity, resources, and settlement, these sort of issues have mismatched in this region and has created different sort of tensions. What you see in terms of insurgency, what you see in terms of popular agitations or other aspects of the Northeast, they come from these sort of elements. So when you look at Manipur, when you look at Assam or all these issues, you need to have this historical perspective. To answer your question, I must say that at first it appears like a law and order issue, but at the end of the day, with greater investigation and greater analysis, different factors might emerge, as different speakers have spoken. But at the end of the day, it's about management of different sensibilities, different aspirations, and how we need to reconcile those aspirations. At the end of the day, it's not about what Métis are getting or what Cookies are getting. At the end of the day, it is about bringing all those interests together and finding a common ground, a reflective equilibrium. If I need to cite an example, even in Assam, 6 communities are demanding ST status. Of course, you can't compare Métis community, which is already quite advanced with these Assamese communities, but I'm just bringing a generalization. So all these communities are demanding, 6 communities demanding for a long time. So what Assam government has done, whether they're discussing with other existing tribals, what can be done for these communities without harming the interests of the other tribes, say Bodos or others, who are opposing to these views. And secondly, what the government of Assam has done in 2021 is that they're giving some autonomous councils and some powers to these other communities so that their grievance is not aggravated. So they get some sort of power and then they can enjoy, and later on ST status can be tackled. That discussion is also going on, but at the same time, their anger is controlled. So these sort of steps can be taken. I'm not saying the situations are similar, but it's a governance issue, it's a settlement issue. It's also an issue of bringing all these interests together. Of course, different elements may exist, but as part of that, as governments, what governments need to do, what citizens need to do is finding solutions and finding these different interests together towards a greater clarity. So I think in terms of union government, it needs to advise the government, it needs to provide guidance, but the buck stops at the doors of the central, state government, because they know the issue, they know the people, so they need to bring everyone together, discuss, sit at the table, and find out common grounds.
General Moore, do you think that the buck stops with the government?
Yeah, I agree. So I agree with that. You see, Vineet, this kind of, this polarization and the kind of political discourse that we see is really very disheartening, very, very disheartening. And this kind of situation now is flaring up in many parts of the country. You saw now religious festivals have become occasions to target each other. It is the political leadership which must come in front and try to bring people of different communities, different faith, different caste together. But I don't see that happening. And sadly, what about the intelligence failure? What about the police? What about the other departments? Finally, the army has to, because we will move in, we will save people, army and Assam, everywhere this is happening like that. And Manipur, these people have lived together for centuries together. And whatever this fault line, we are aware of these fault lines. When these fault lines get ruptured and the old wounds start festering, That means there is some kind of, somebody wants to take political advantage out of it, and there are, the pie is small, and everybody wants to grab whatever more share they can get for their own community or the region. And coming from a state, Manipur, which is supposed to be most peaceful, the best people, the sportsmen, and really a role model for other states of India, this is very disheartening. So we must fix responsibility. We must find out. But first of all, I would again, as a military man who served in conflict-prone areas all over the country, we need to have a better political discourse. We need to stop polarization. There's too much, not only between religions, now it is between communities, between faiths, between people who have lived together for centuries together. Old wounds are brought up in a manner where it should not be. So very sad for me, but I hope we are 5 days internet block. Can you imagine us living without internet for half a day? What happens? Suddenly everything goes, the education goes, your social life today, internet is water today. If you don't get water in a day, imagine what happens. So this ban, putting a block on internet or 144, this is not the answer. This is not the answer. So I think we need better discourse. The leadership must step forward, bring people together, show large-heartedness, and otherwise these problems will keep festering here and there, and not a good thing for India's story. And that too, when we have G20 summit here in the country, these things are really a sad situation. So I leave it at that, Vineet.
Okay, Mr. Ojha, if you're there with us, sir.
Yes, Vineet, sorry for joining late. I'm here.
Mr. Ojha, what do you make of this violence, and what if you make of the sporadic nature of this violence, which we, including you and me, have spoken of on the same platform a multitude of times in the past, perhaps for a different reason?
Vineet, I have been engaging friends from Northeast from my days in university, 1980s onwards. And when I was in student politics, friends from this section were very, very close to me. And then I have extensively traveled throughout Northeast, lived there for short durations, different cities. Manipur has a very long and unique history. Firstly, I would say, that there's a long ecosystem of violence and turbulence. And this was externally sponsored and coordinated for some time. We have to be grateful to both our armed forces as well as civil society leaders that they have brought situation under control. And that region is very well integrated. Until Muiwa was caught in Bangkok in 1999, people refused to believe that ISI could have something to do with turbulence in this region. But that was a time when, mainstream bureaucracy, journalists, etc., they considered Chinese involvement was very well known. But, with Awami League government coming in Bangladesh, situation has improved, and this externally sponsored things were contained. But this ecosystem of violence continues to persist beneath, and there are people who can get provoked. There are local networks, etc., you can say. And the fault lines that we are talking about, one has to see a little more carefully. This Manipur Meiteis are concerned, they created an oasis of civilization in that region, extremely sophisticated Manipur dance to Govindaji's temple in Imphal, etc. But the equation was not as what is being projected. Most of the tribals, and in Manipur, Nagas, there's sets of Nagas are there. Then there are Kukis and others who are there, another set of tribals whom Nagas don't get along well. And then these Meiteis are there. Meiteis have been complaining for a long time that they were not beneficiaries of reservation for n number of years. Only after OBC thing came, I suppose they are now getting benefits under OBC. And this started changing social equations because of reservation, etc. Naga and other tribes, they started advancing, and Manipuris, they felt that they were somehow being discriminated in their own land, their social status was changing, and their entire influence was confined to only valley area in this Manipur, whereas rest of these things have been going on. But fact is that, issue is not who is wrong, who is right. This is the way we are evolving. Things have to change. People who are backward, they have to come up. But we have to see that, this kind of grievance is not there. Access to opportunities are equitable, fair, and just. And we need a very strong state that way, responsive state. So I wouldn't say government alone has failed. It's responsibility of civil society also, to see that, they coordinate with each other, and government and civil society and administration or security forces, all of them have to work together. So this kind of vandalization that they indulged in, that had no place. And, this has become far more easier in India, anywhere in India, that you destroy public property and you realize that nothing is going to happen. So I don't take it very seriously. I know it's a problem, but still I feel we are far better than where we were towards the end of last century, 20 years back. We have come forward, but still, we need a more responsive and robust government where any indulgence in violence has to be prevented. And if at all we identify who are the people perpetrators of this violence, they have to dealt with very sternly. But unfortunately, I wouldn't blame Manipur alone. That area, as I said, has an ecosystem, but our state has been very soft and fragile and very, very tolerant to this kind of violence. And then we have to take recourse to something like this, which disturbs life. But still, I would say, Vineet, not to worry too much. Yes, it's a sporadic thing, but Manipur is far better integrated. Issue is, how do we set up a more responsive state? And government over there, they have to, reconcile with these contentious identities. There are difficulties, but I would say civil society also has to come up and see that, these inter-community disturbances or differences, these are not allowed to hijack peace, security, and stability of that area, Vineet, which has benefited a lot, which has progressed a lot. And I agree with our general friend who was speaking prior to me that, that is a model state in multiple ways, how different it is even from most of the states in mainland India, I would say. So very concerning, but I'm sure we will get out of this situation, provided all sections work together. And this network of violence, armed gunslinging, etc., these are completely destroyed, Vineet.
Absolutely. Great points there. And Sumit, of course, taking a leaf out of what Mr. Ojha said, that, it's not only up to the government. The civil society also needs to get along. The civil society also needs to realize, that their duties and responsibilities, which basically mandate for, our civilization and for us at this point in time to get along.
If you look at the whole problem, the problem is much bigger, but what you think, because there is an undercurrent, what Mani Saab and what Ojaji rightly said, there is a strong undercurrent. There was a good Chinese influence there. There were Chinese sponsored gangs and groups they were backing. ISI has been operational there. Northeast before 2014 was a different land. I will not say different country, a different land, alienated. After 2014, after a lot of efforts have been done by the BJP, the Northeast has got mainstream. The development has reached there. You see access to the Chittagong port, the railway, the roadways. Now today, Honorable Prime Minister said that every state capital must have rail, road and airport links. Operation Udan, the development things, the organic farming which has been done there. There are a lot of initiatives of the government which have got the people mainstream. Then another important thing which has happened politically is now, if you see, Northeast is traditionally Christian dominated. Right? In a Christian dominated Northeast, BJP has been winning election after election after election. Now, a lot of people are not happy with this. Why? How come this, so-called Hindu nationalist party is winning elections in Christian-dominated place? Who has BJP replaced? Some regional parties and the left parties. Now, if when you look at the left mindset, violence is an accepted way of statecraft. They don't mind violence, blood, killing, bomb, blood, and bullet is okay with them. They don't mind that. So when these small things, when a misunderstanding, can result in the violence, and the player like Mary Kom has to say, please save my state is burning. Now, Biren Singh ji says there's a misunderstanding which could have been settled. How does a simple protest turn so violent? Why are you burning the houses? What is violence going to do? Because there are a lot of forces out of this country, including China and Pakistan, and some within this country who do not want a peaceful Northeast, who do not want Northeast to progress, who do not want the people of Northeast to be mainstream. You see, and the area is when we have the SCO foreign ministers meeting on, you see the area around Chicken Neck has got activated. You're seeing the problems that started cropping up. Is it a coincidence or was it planned? Obviously, how can a small protest turn violent? How can so much of things happen? Why does you have to deploy Assam rifles? Why you have to move rapid action force? So that is, there are people behind it who organize this violence. This was only a bahana, because giving this community a reservation, which was as per the Honorable High Court's decision, was only a bahana. You were waiting for a problem, you were waiting for an opportunity to orchestrate trouble. And that is what you have done, because at the end of the day, you don't want to portray the image of Northeast. When SCO is happening, when G20 is happening, things like that are happening, you want to portray the same image. Now we see the wrestler issues happening in Jantar Mantar. Now we see the issues happening in Northeast. Now we see these Farji, press index reports which are coming, which rate us lower than Afghanistan and Pakistan. If there's such a mockery and sham which can happen, anything can happen. They are all orchestrated things which are planned at a stipulated period. So you want to burn India this way or that way. That is what
absolutely, Sumit. Great points there, and definitely this is a wake-up call for a number of stakeholders in that part of our country.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.